What's going on, guys? This is Tori Kravitz, joined by my co-host Alicia Atout. Welcome back to another episode of She's at the Band. How's it going, Alicia?
Whew. We are knocking these out, Tori. We are hanging so much. This is absolutely insane. To those listening, we're filming this on a day where we literally have like 3 or 4 other interviews. So things are good in the world of podcasting right now. How are you?
Yeah, man. I feel like I see you more than my own roommate these days. If I'm
Because you
being
do.
honest. I really do. Like I've been so busy with the podcast, no complaints. And today's guest is a really cool one too. Like somebody I was just telling you before we jumped on, like I don't know how our paths just continuously cross. So I kind of enjoy like not only connecting with you, but also reconnecting with people I used to speak with or know, and vice versa. Sometimes it's someone you may know better than me. So just like through network, you just meet
Mhm.
and connect with so many new people.
I think one of my favorite phrases, and of course we'll get to our guest in a moment, but it's you got to network to get work. And it's been so
Mm.
cool to see over the couple of months that we've been hosting this, just how many people have come in and out of our lives. Now they're back in thanks to where we are right now. Like we literally had a few guests on recently who were like, yeah, we've watched both of you growing up, and these little things that just blow our minds
Yeah.
and consistently have been bringing a lot of really neat, unique elements to the show. So man, it's been a trip, hasn't it?
It has been. I mean, I did a post on my Instagram maybe a few days ago from the time we're filming this, where I kind of looked back at my career and how obviously we've both been in this for so long. And I was really reminiscing about all the people I've met and known. And like it's incredible. So between the two of us, it's so much to learn and grow, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're talking
Yeah.
about learning too, because obviously since starting this show, we've switched up the format a little bit. Now we're shooting the breeze before every show, and that's literally, other than of course the deep dive conversations. Like this is my favorite part. I love being able to do this. So very
Yeah.
big on the growth as well. I feel like people who aren't able to come out and actually appreciate growth or are scared of it, like just get with it, please. It's a wonderful thing.
I mean, I think that's like this whole podcast is about, learning from other women and raising each other up. And I think like that's something that I've learned through this podcast and kind of knew beforehand as well. But it's a good reminder that like the music industry is so ever changing that if you can't adapt on the fly, like I know Andy Stoic was talking about that of like you just gotta be able to do what you gotta do when you gotta do it.
Mhm.
And no matter what it is, just adapt and always be learning. So it's super true, especially in this industry. Like Snapchat was around when I was doing the pit blogs. That's not around anymore. Now it's TikTok. So in all aspects,
A
learning's a
lot
move.
A lot's changed. It's cool too that we're talking about reminiscing and those big interviews that we first got when we were teenagers, because obviously we got to just talk music before we get into
Yeah.
talking with our guest today. But there's this band called The Vaccines from the UK, and they're
Mm.
like a newer version of the Ramones, like just really quick, punchy rock songs with that punk energy. And I totally suggest to everyone watching and listening, like, please listen to Handsome or If You Wanna, because they're really energetic, danceable punk songs that are super melodious, but also romantic. And I saw them when I was 16 because my parents got me tickets to see Arctic Monkeys in Toronto, and the Vaccines were actually opening for them, and they were a
Well,
joy to see live. And then years later, I interviewed them, had them on my show, and it's one of those full circle moments. And those ones, those hit, don't they? Those are the best.
oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's something we were just talking about with another guest as well. Like when you get to meet or see the bands that you just grew up loving, like it's spiritual. So I feel
Yes,
you.
that's what we're going to go with for the word. It is a spiritual, uplifting, wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember like silly enough, that's how I felt when I interviewed Never Shout Never. Like someone I loved in high school that I was just like, this is sick. So
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
for
And
sure.
talking about like networking and stuff, I have a friend who lives in LA. She's like my best friend since we were like 13 going to shows together. She lives out in LA now. She is like such a social butterfly. She's always meeting new people, always going to shows. I don't know how she does it. And a few months ago, she told me about this band called Soul Blind. And I was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Sounds sick, Elena, whatever you say. And then I went back and listened to them over the last couple weeks, and I was like, oh man, I should have listened to her when she first told me. So just a reminder, like if your friend recommends something, it's
Listen
worth
to
a
your
listen.
friends.
So they have a song called Falling Asleep that's been on my rotation at the moment, Soul Blind. So shout out to my friend Elena, who's probably not listening to this because she's too busy making new friends. But if she is listening, thank you.
Ooh, okay. See, I just took something away from this, and I say this whether it's heavy conversations or she's with the band. Like, I'm always listening to whoever else is on the panel or in the show to get those nuggets of who else I should be listening to, like the tastemakers of our scene, including you, my friend. So it's very, very
Thank
cool.
you.
I cannot wait for that. Any films that you've loved? Because I know there's one I want to rave about so hard.
Dude, you go for it. I will say I've just been watching White Lotus. I've just been catching up on that, which
I need
it's
to
worth
get
the
on
hype.
it. Yeah.
It's worth the hype. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, do it.
With Jennifer in it, it would have to be. She has my heart. She is such an iconic soul for sure. So I gotta get on that.
The rebel in me, whenever I see something really hyped up, I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. You know what I mean? I've always been rooting for the underdogs. But with White Lotus, I was like, fine, I'll finally watch this thing. And I was like, they're onto something with all this chatter. But what about you, Alicia? What's this movie? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so it's not even a new one, but I've been going back and watching films that were recommended to me from just people on social media saying these are shows or movies with the best twists of all time. So as I'm going through them, I know we discussed Old Boy the other week, but The Mist came back up in conversation. And so I went back and watched it. It's from 2007, a thriller horror movie. And pretty much it's about a bunch of people who get stuck in a grocery store together after a crazy storm. And then this wild mist comes over and creatures are amongst this mist, this cloud of nothing. And they just start attacking. And it has one of the most baffling, saddening, insane mind screw endings I have ever seen. And so it it just drew me in and I needed more. So very good film. Highly recommended. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I don't take that lightly. I will be checking that out. I promise.
Please do. I'll listen to your band. You check out my film. This is what it's all about.
Absolutely. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because I learn something new every time we start an episode now.
Let's talk about our guest, because you have some history, man, like some real history with who we're going to have on. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Shawna's not somebody that I was like ever super, super close to, but we've just always had like paths crossing. Yep. First met her through Warped Tour. Shocking to no one. Surprise. But they were doing Warped Tour. I remember having them in my pit blog, and I remember that something that came across in my research. I was like, oh my God, that's so true. That year of Warped Tour, a lot of the artists were doing workshops. So it was like, whatever they specialized in or something that they knew really well, they were doing workshops on. So Shawna of War on Women, who we're going to be speaking to shortly, was doing workshops about creating safe spaces in venues and at shows, and teaching, whoever's at Warped Tour that was interested in ways to do that. So I always admired her for that. And of course, the message of the band. Then fast forward to more recent days, I work for a publicity company. So I do PR as well as doing hosting. And out of nowhere, my PR company was working with Shawna and War on Women to just help spread their message, which I was just like, this is the world so small. And especially the music industry is so small. So it's very cool. It was just like a light bulb moment of, she is such a wonderful person to have on this podcast, since we're all about advocating for women and safety and equality for women in the music industry.
No, as soon as you told me that this fell into your lap and the universe put it your way, I said, yes, we need to have her on. Let's get Shawna on stat, because she really does represent everything that we are trying to bring forward with this podcast, especially with the book that she came out with, which I cannot wait to talk with her about. So yeah, it's going to be a very insightful conversation.
Well, as we always say, should we bring her on?
Oh, we shall. Let's do this.
All right.
And now it's our pleasure to welcome Shawna to She's with the Band. Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are both of you?
Oh, we're great.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Me too.
No, just hyped to have you here. I mean, just before this interview started, we were talking about how our paths have crossed in such unexpected ways, like through Warped Tour and through, that's Rush PR, doing work together there. So like, here we are again.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it when like people are still around in the
Yeah.
music industry, and I want to throw up in my mouth when I say the word industry, but I really love running into people later, or like becoming friends with people just because you see them at shows and festivals. It's super, super cool to see who sticks around and who doesn't. No judgment, because it's hard
It is
out
interesting though.
there. But it's just interesting. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Because half the time you see somebody and they're working somewhere and then they're still within the business, but in a totally different way. They're contributing, and then they're behind the scenes, they're in front of it. It's always changing. So it is kind of cool when you see like a decade later, the same people still hustling and doing what we love. So
yeah.
I mean, it is tough out there. I mean, I know for me, like I took a little hiatus, but I feel like those people who like are just meant to be in it and just can't imagine doing anything else, you always find your way back, even if you leave
and
for a
maybe
little
it's
while.
like maybe it's a conversation for my therapist. Maybe it's an Arrested Development situation. It's not actually like good, but it just is. I have to do this. I have to play music. That's how it feels.
Absolutely. And there's so much to you that obviously we want to talk about on this podcast today. I think like I really would love to start from the beginning of like how you became the fearless feminist and artist that you are today. And I know that in some previous interviews, you credited both your grandmother and your mother for being two really fierce examples that inspired you growing up, and also just having a nomadic lifestyle and a lot of different things that come into play. So what were some of the key lessons that you learned like through growing up with them that transformed you into who you are now in War on Women?
I mean, I think in a word, self-reliance, right? Like there was not always a man around in the house kind of thing. And no one else was going to take care of business. So we had to do it ourselves. So that's what I saw. A little bit of like, not the like you can't count on anyone, so not in like the super like sad intense way, but just like something needs to get done, and then you do it. So I think that's the biggest thing that I really appreciate. I really feel like my mom is a tolerant person, and I learned early on from her that even though people are different, everyone deserves love and respect, and to just like live their own lives. And I've certainly built upon that idea.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely takes like that go-getter mindset to succeed in the music industry, for how chaotic it is.
That's true.
That's
yeah, really,
sure.
like not letting anyone tell me no. Like I knew that playing music, it was mostly men doing it, but I just wanted to. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to perform. I wanted to sing. When I saw the doll parts video on MTV, I was like, oh, I can play guitar. Oh, well, I want to play guitar too. Okay, let's do all these things. I had no idea. And then once I realized it was an option, I was like, oh, I'm all in. And so just the fact that it was a bunch of dudes most of the time, I didn't like, I was like, so what? Like, I'm going to do this because I want to, which is honestly like not something in my work, I try to make sure that people know that they shouldn't feel pressure to enter situations where they're totally outnumbered, that it's okay if they're like, I opt out. Thank you very much. I don't want to be around this. Like, that's fine. But it takes all kinds. And I was the kind that was like, fuck you, I'm doing what I want.
I think the moment I realized that you truly through and through had that attitude is when I was looking at the War on Women logo, because it's just a fantastic piece of art. Just like the big smile being forced by middle fingers. It's just such a bold, brilliant statement. So kind of speaking to that upbringing, like being around such strong women and knowing sometimes you are going to have to go through life getting all of these no's and waiting for that yes moment, but not letting it tear you down. Like, do you feel like that when out in the world, like that logo, kind of smiling on the outside, but with the driven force of a screw you behind it on the inside?
Yeah. It depends on my mood. It depends on what I've been through that day. Am I hungry? Did I get enough?
Am I hungry?
Like, really, all those things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally human, and I am not always like, I definitely 100% I'm not always confident. I'm usually working towards it. It is easier to say fuck you to like outright ridiculous casual sexism. It's just like, get away from me, you buzzing fly, who cares? But it can be hard, and it can like beat you down a little bit, figuratively. And literally. But I really, when it's funny, when we started this band, I had always been playing guitar in bands. This is the first band, like, for real, where I'm just the front person. I don't have an instrument. And so I had this like chip on my shoulder about like, oh no, now if this is the first time anyone's seen me perform, they're going to be like, oh, she's just the singer. And I had to like really psych myself up and like tell myself, no one said that about Robert Plant, like he's not just the singer, it's okay. No one says that about Cedric and At the Drive-In. And so like it's okay, maybe I can do it too. And then I just started telling myself, okay, well, what would a confident singer of a feminist hardcore band do? Okay, well, I'll do that. And then I was like, oh, and also that's me. Like, it's me. What would I do? Like, I don't know. It was, I had to like tell myself that I was like playing a role. And then eventually I realized it's not a role. It's who I am. And so it's like fake it till you make it, I guess.
That's a heavy revelation though, to
Totally.
finally come into that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think fake it till you make it works in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
And I hate to boil it down to that, but that's kind of what it was. It was like, just pretend to be a feminist hardcore singer. And then the next thing I know, it's like 10 years later.
Wow. That is insane. And I kind of resonate a little bit with what you were saying too, of like how you approach these kind of things depends on your mood or depends on how hungry you are, all different kinds of things. And that was something I came across in reading some previous interviews with you, is you mentioned how it's such a delicate dance of knowing how to react to sexist remarks or behavior versus do you fight back or do you let it slide for the sake of keeping the peace? And that's something, at least personally, I've always had a tough time with. I tend to go for the bitch face, but it varies.
Sure.
We've talked about that a lot, actually, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we've all been there. So I would love to know from you, Shawna, like, do you think there is a right or wrong way to react to that?
No, I don't. And that's what I teach in my trainings and workshops, is that if you are experiencing some sort of discrimination or harassment, I find myself giving people permission to pretend to ignore it and telling them that that's not a sign of weakness. That's you just trying to get through your fucking day. And that's fine and valid, So you can pretend to ignore it. That's cool. But if you feel comfortable, if you're going to see that person again, like you work with them even casually, or if you have some sort of relationship with them, like it probably behooves you to do something more than ignore it, so that it can change. And there's tons of ways to go about that. But any response makes sense, of course, with the caveat of I don't prefer that people escalate violence. I try to live a nonviolent lifestyle. I would never begrudge like a direct victim of like assault or rape, like I'm going to stay out of your business, do what you got to do. But violence begets violence. And I think that there are ways to calm all that down and stop it and eventually end it if we all work together towards that.
Yeah, no, that's a great response, because I do think sometimes when you get really hyped up hearing bands like War on Women, for example, and you're just like, I just want to rage at everyone and yell and scream. And the next time somebody catcalls me, I'm probably going to just run them over. And it's like, that's not always real.
If only, right?
I mean, I will just like, I hear a car horn honk and I just don't even look and I throw up a middle finger and I just keep walking, and maybe they see it, maybe they don't. And, or if someone's like, blah, 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 I go, fuck you. And I keep walking, make it clear that I'm not actually trying to engage, but that I do resist whatever they're saying. And that's fine. That's totally fine. I've also gotten myself in a little bit of trouble doing that, where that did escalate it. Yeah. And it started to get like really scary. And I had to get myself out of a situation. And so it's a little bit of just, acknowledging that anything could happen. Sure. But doing what you need to do and being ready to just get the fuck out of there if you need to. But safety is paramount. So whatever it takes to get out of a situation safely, even if that's pretending to ignore it, like that's totally fine.
That's incredibly well put, because I've been in those positions and I'm very sad to say that I know we all have. And I came across the statistic that 92% of female concert goers have been harassed. And I just thought that was absolutely baffling, because I've been in those situations where someone will catcall you or say something horrible. And deep down, you want to rage and be like, just fuck off. But then sometimes saying something, like you mentioned, escalates into them following you down the street. And that's happened. So you really sometimes don't know where to speak up and other times when not to, and that in itself is just such a shame that like we can't avoid that mentality, because overall, like, I'm scared sometimes when that stuff happens.
Yeah, and that's valid. And of course, and then it's a double-edged sword of people are like, well, why didn't you tell them to stop? Why didn't you, like blaming you for your own whatever happened to you? It's, you can't fucking win. And that's why I'm like, do whatever you gotta do. But also that's why I love talking about safer space stuff and bystander intervention, because there are ways to shut that shit down, even if you're scared. Like, so just the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. I did not invent this, but one of those Ds is delegate. So you can turn to like the tall dude blocking your friend's view of the show and say, hey, this guy over here is bothering me. Can we switch spots? Can you make sure, whatever. And most people, when you ask them to help in that way, like they want to feel like heroic. They want to feel like they're doing good. And if it's as easy as just changing spots or standing between someone, there she goes. There's the dog. Then people want to do that. Let's see if I can get her to shut the fuck
Oh, if we
down.
could have a little cameo, that would just make me.
I would. She's
so
63
happy.
pounds, so I don't know.
Oh, so maybe not.
So maybe not today. I haven't stretched yet. Rosie. I'm gonna just shut the door so she can't hear the neighbors outside.
Of course.
Sure. You're a good girl. I know. Thank you for protecting. Yeah. Thank you for protecting. Now I'll give her a treat because she was. I came inside. Gave me my treat. There you go.
I give my little fur baby way too many treats a day, but it's like, oh, you look cute. Here's a little one.
You look cute and you deserve a treat. Well, 1, it's true. They do. And then 2, I just adjust her dinner.
That's exactly it.
I mean, that's all you can do. Sometimes it's more important to be like, okay, shut up. Thank you. I love you. Bye.
Oh.
All right. We should be good.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah,
Go ahead, Tor.
No, but something I did want to touch on, because you're mentioning bystander intervention, which I know 5 Ds, everybody should be looking them up. We don't need to go super in depth because that is available online. But it is great to mention, like, it is such a high pressure situation to be in if you do see somebody legitimately being harassed or something kind of dangerous going on, and knowing in a split second how to safely react, again, not to escalate. So, is there like a general rule of thumb of like, this is probably the best course of action if you're like in a split second bind and need to know what to do? Or is it just kind of like on a case by case?
Yeah, it's definitely case by case, because also it depends on your mood, the time you have. Are you shy? Do you hate confrontation? Do you like confrontation? Like there's a D for everybody in every situation. But I'd say that you can usually rely on delegate, especially at a show. There's a lot of people to delegate to. Tell the bartender, tell security, tell the tall, beefy person that like is just naturally intimidating looking, even though they're a teddy bear, blah, blah, blah. So there's the delegate. And then I think distract can often be a good one. And there's a lot of different ways to distract. And that's that you can either separate them by being like, oh my God, Tori, is that you? Let's go over here. Oh my God, I got to show you. Alicia's here. Let's go talk, like pulling them away, or being like, hey, your card's declined. You got to come back over here on the other side of the bar. That's for bartenders. Or just like spilling something accidentally on purpose. The dog.
She found a way back in.
She's flapping around, shaking around. So she's distracting me. Do you see that? Okay, so do you see, like, she distracted me?
It works.
And it completely broke my concentration. I forgot what I was saying, and it just took a moment. But if in that moment I was harassing Tori, like Tori could have been like, bye, you just could have gotten out of there. That's all you needed was that split second to walk away while I'm distracted by this dog being cute over here.
And little did we know that the dog was going to be the key factor of this lesson. Incredible.
This interview, clearly.
Well, When it does come to women literally just going to live shows and wanting to see live music for that pure love deep down, we
Mm.
do have to deal with the getting yelled at, groped, and stalked. And I know way too many people who have had to endure that. So, do you think that deep down we'll kind of see a significant change, or that things have even gotten better over time? Let's say even in the last 5 years or so?
I feel like things have gotten better, but it's like every time things get better, there's this pushback. And right now, there is a rise in conservatism and fascism and anti-trans sentiment, anti-immigrant sentiment, anti-Black sentiment. So there's a lot of hate and discrimination. And according to, I think the CDC, like hate crimes have been steadily on the rise since 2016, 2017. Do you remember what was going on around then? Yeah. So it hasn't stopped since the 2016, 2017 era. And that's why I think we must be doing something right, because people are out there, they're trying to live their authentic like truths, and it's pissing people off. So in a way, we're doing something right, and we have to keep doing that. But we also need to fight hate and harassment wherever we see it, however small it might seem in the moment, because all that stuff adds up. And if we let those little things slide, then we kind of accept them. We normalize them. We say it's okay. And people that, are engaging in this kind of hateful stuff, they usually are trying to push people's boundaries and edges. And so if like these little comments are okay, then okay, well, what about if I just shove someone around a little bit? How much can I get away with? How much will people let me get away with? So that's why no matter how small, people in the audience at a show need to shut that shit down. And that's why everyone should know the 5Ds. So whether you're the victim of some sort of identity-based harassment or you're usually not, and you can step in, if everybody knows what the 5Ds are, then they can work together to use them and stop the bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And clearly we are asking you all of this advice and talking to you about all these things because you are an authority on the subject.
Yeah, really. Who's this lady? Why is she going on about this stuff? Got it.
No, I do think it's worth mentioning, like, in addition to being in War on Women, you're also leading the Baltimore chapter of Holla Back, which is all about ending street harassment. You also have a book called Making Spaces Safer. I even remember I mentioned before this interview started that you did the TEI workshops at Warped Tour. I remember being there and watching you teach all those kids about, well, they're not all kids, but the Warped Tour attendees about making sure that concerts and venues are a safe space. But it's such a huge task. Like, how did you get into all of this and become like more than just a front woman of a band, but also an educator?
Well, a quick correction: I no longer run the Hollaback chapter in Baltimore. It ran for 10 years and now it's closed. And then Hollaback, as an international organization, changed their name kind of recently to Right to Be. So they're now called Right to Be. I think righttobee.org is where you can go to learn more, but they're still doing anti-harassment stuff. That's what they're all about. But I started War on Women at the same time that I really got into activism, and I really started raising awareness about street harassment and what people can do about it. And this is in, 2010, 2011. Like, when I started the chapter of Hollaback in my town, like, I had good friends who are good guys say, what is the big deal? Like, why would you start an organization? And like, is this really a problem? And we've come so far as a society in understanding street harassment and like its effects and what it's really like. And so I feel really like humbled and grateful to have like a tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic part of that. Like, the whole world kind of, got a little better at that. And I got to do something that maybe helped. And so I had this outlet for all my feelings around harassment, and Hollaback and my activism let me, let's be cool. Let's learn how to de-escalate. Let's, fix things, blah, blah, blah. And then the band let me just fucking yell and be mad and get all my anger out. And I really think that it wouldn't have made sense for me to do one without the other. It's like I needed both at that time in my life. And eventually I realized that Warren Women was getting big enough that I was having more of an impact with the band, and just by being on stage and talking to people that way and with social media. And so I just started putting all my concentration into the band. But that's after, 10 years of organizing and tabling and talking to people and running trainings and workshops and all that stuff. And so it wasn't like overnight. It wasn't like one day I decided to write a book. It was just at some point I realized I have an expertise that I've built up over years, and this is information that is meant to be shared.
Mhm.
This is not something I should like keep super private. Like everyone needs this. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. I think that's something I've always admired about you, though, because it's so easy to just join a band and yell on stage and then not take action about the things that you're yelling about on stage.
Yeah.
But you have always done both. Like you walk the walk,
I try. I would say it's been really hard the last few years. Like the pandemic really zapped my energy. It zapped my creativity. I wasn't writing any songs or lyrics or anything. And I felt really like dejected. And it's kind of only recently that I've started to think, okay, I can do this again. Like Warren Women, like right now, I don't know if when this comes out, but right now at this moment, Warren Women's doing a fundraiser for a local domestic violence shelter, and by just selling some merch. And like 2 years ago, I couldn't even like fathom the energy to do that. And it's such a small, easy thing. And so I'm very lucky to have good friends that were like, bitch, you can do something. Like snap out of it, like let's get to work. Because sometimes you need that tough love. So I got some tough love and I was like, okay, you're right. So I'm getting back into it and trying to manage being affected by this pandemic, while also acknowledging that we can and should help people because we have some sort of a platform.
It's valid, though, because being an advocate, you also have to take care of yourself, or else how on earth do you go about speaking out successfully to other people? So
yeah,
I get that. It can be draining.
Mask on first,
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Great
exactly.
point. Well, just sticking to the book, there's something I came across that
you mean this right here?
That book right in front of us, everybody. The main mission is
sorry.
No, that was beautiful. Please, I am probably the biggest shameless self-promoter you will ever meet. It's bad, but you have to be. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But
we get it.
We definitely do. But one of the beauties of kind of seeing this book come to fruition, and what I loved seeing, is the fact that there's a chapter called How to Flirt Without Being a Creep. And I commend you so heavily for writing this. So I'd just love for you to share the tips with some people listening. Not all of them, because of course we got to leave them some for the book, but just those top tips where people can maybe just grasp there's a way to do this without coming off like a creep.
Yeah. The writing that chapter, it came out of me doing trainings and speaking engagements at universities mostly. And so I'd have all these like 18, 19, 20-year-olds that they knew sexism was bad and they didn't want to do that, but they're like, but women are hot and I want to be with them. What do I do? And I get that. Like, just as a human being, I'm like, okay, I get that. Let me help you. And so through conversations with some young folks, a lot of this stuff is what came out of that. And the first thing, my first tip, if you want to flirt with someone, but you don't want to be a creep, is to don't. Like, do you really want to go on a date with them? Do you really want to hook up with them? Or are you just saying something to say something? Like, if you have no intention of giving them your number, getting their number, like hanging out, having coffee, blah, 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 like, and you're just like, nice ass, like, then don't, just shut up. Shut up. So, and if there's not going to be any follow through, keep your opinions about someone else's body to yourself.
It's amazing advice. It's so simple too.
Number one, shut up. Number two,
it would spare us a lot of hurt feelings as well, and energy. Really so thank you.
Yes. I'm with you. And then two, it's whatever you're gonna say about their piercing, their tattoo, their hair color, like they've heard it already. They've heard it a million times. There's nothing interesting or unique about what you're about to say.
You're not special, bud.
You're not, no, there's nothing like, oh, nice tattoo. Oh, thanks. Like we don't care anymore. And this is not specific to any gender, right? Like,
Yep.
like anyone on the gender spectrum can be like, okay, enough about my beard, enough about the tattoos. Like, I get it. Right. So is there something else you can say about something that they have control over? Like, even just, hey, oh, cool shirt, I saw that band at this show. Like, did you see them when they came through recently? Oh, or, oh, I was reading that book too. I don't want to bother you, but like, that's a cool book. And then shut up. If they want to talk to you some more, they will, you know? So that's, I don't know, that's a couple tips. Also, like, I do not begrudge anyone. I make sure that people know that saying someone like, hey, Tori, I think you're really cool. I'd love to take you out sometime. Here's my number. That's not harassment. If I do it once, if I hand you my number and then leave you the fuck alone and leave the ball in your court. Like, you might not be interested. You might not be like, oh, okay, get away from me. Who is this lady? Like, fine, but it's not harassment. And so it's okay to try to like have a genuine connection with someone and reach out and say, I'm interested in you. As long as you back up and like give them the power to engage with you or not. And the whole time you're not just talking about their body parts, you know, like that should be off the table.
Yeah. I am really glad that you mentioned the don't compliment tattoos and piercings, because I think as soon as someone says, hey, nice tattoos, I'm like, you're a creep. Like, it's just an automatic association.
Yeah.
So you know what?
That's
Thank
wild.
you for that. That's great advice. Yeah.
See, you're talking to someone who literally from head to toe like doesn't have a tattoo. And I told Tori this story, but when I tried getting a tattoo, it literally disappeared. My skin's apparently bizarre.
Whoa, that's amazing.
So
I love
I've
it.
never had that, but I would have totally thought, obviously, now that you mention it, like, yes, that would be something that would drive me crazy. And I'd be like, fuck off. Like, yeah, my tattoo's great. I don't need you telling me.
Yeah. And, you know, and then people say like, well, then why'd you get it? Obviously, when everyone's going to see it, and you have to be like, I got it for me. And, you know, and there's a difference, again, between saying like, hey, Tori, nice tattoos. Or being like, oh, I really love that flower. My mom used to plant those all the time. I have these really great memories of like summer, you know what I'm saying? Like,
big difference.
that is
Thoughtful.
a different thing. So, you know, that's what people should be thinking about if they're trying to have these conversations. And then, you know, the whole like, dude, we've heard it before. You're not special. I think hopefully that will go a long way. That might be mind blowing to some dudes.
And you know what? I hope we've all walked away learning something new if you didn't already know this, because you know what? One day at a time, we're making the world a better place with less bad flirting. So
yeah,
that's right.
Shawna.
That's right. I'm all for flirting, and there's plenty more, like you said in the book, a lot more tips and tricks. Yeah. And just know, like, I'm pro flirting, pro hooking up, pro one night stand, like whatever your thing is, I'm for it, as long as everyone's cool with it.
Exactly. And something else, you know, I think it's kind of interesting because I've had my moments in dappling in activism. I did work with like animal rights for quite a long time. And one thing I learned through my time doing that kind of advocacy is that it is one thing to talk to people who are already vegan or already care about animal rights, and you're just preaching to the choir. So in that case, like, yeah, it's so easy. This is such an easy job. So like, I imagine it's a similar situation. Like if you're doing a War on Women headliner show, everyone who's coming out to the show is just like, well, yeah, this message is great. But then what happens when you play with another band who has a different audience, who doesn't know what your message is yet? So the question I am trying to get out of this whole narrative is, if you have any memorable moments of times where you've come across people who may oppose what you're saying or oppose your message, and how you've been able to effectively educate them, if you've had any good stories in that realm.
I feel like there are stories that maybe whoever's doing merch for us might be more privy to. Like, they're going to get the brunt of it, because usually if we're opening up for someone else, we're lucky enough that it might be like a good like mid-size level club or a big club. And so there's like a little bit of separation. Like, we'll come out and hang out, but there's still, it's like, but everyone's going to merch. and they might have something to say. So merch people are heroes. Let me just put that out there.
Yeah.
They're dealing with all kinds of weird stuff. But yeah, I've heard from them later that there's been people that are like, this is ridiculous, and then they go, okay, don't buy it, you know, like. So it might be better that they're not in the band and feel like super personally connected to it, because they're like, okay, don't spend your money then, go over there. But I remember a lot of stories of like younger men, so like teenagers, older teenagers, they'd come by our table, and like a lot of times we'd have like a bowl of condoms and tampons like to give away for free, and these teenage boys would just like laugh. Like they'd get to the table and straight up Beavis and Butthead style just fucking laugh that like tampons were out on the table. Like they couldn't say anything, they couldn't verbalize anything, they're just laughing. And I was like, okay, it's really good that we have these on the table then. Whether anyone needs them or not, like these boys need to be exposed to things that other people deal with all the time, because surprise, we're exposed to the things you deal with all the time.
Yeah.
You're the default in media, right? So you should also be aware of our stuff and it not be like a big deal or like funny, you know, it's a piece of cotton.
It's so crazy, like that is the reaction to something like a tampon. Like it's so obscure and so off the wall to them that they just can't
like they
hold
were
it together.
freaking out. I remember, and having more than
nothing
once
to react about.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. And so, you know, and I get like teenagers, like I truly believe like they could grow like older and like become like the most badass feminist ally dudes in the world. Like that's fine. Everyone can grow and learn and change and whatever. But I'm like, okay, our school system is failing these young people. So we've had that, and then very rarely someone might come up and be like, I don't believe in this. And like, and really that vague too. Like they're not even getting specific. Like they're just like, I don't like the idea of this band. And again, a merch person just goes, okay, and go away. So that's a form of de-escalation, folks. You don't actually have to debate people or get into a huge discussion to shut something down. Usually if you ignore them, they might go away. So
yeah.
But I don't know, people might have a problem with like a specific t-shirt design because it's still a punk band, you know, so it's still like not always like for like appropriate for every environment to wear one of our shirts. And I don't know. Yeah, I think what I'm getting at here, what I'm realizing is that when we play, before we play, people might have a preconceived notion of what we sound like, right? Because of their limited exposure to women in music. So they assume, even with a band name like Warring Women, they assume that we're some sort of like Lilith Fair kind of thing, or that we're like Butcher Babies, you know, like, and that's all they know, right? They don't know anything else. And so they get to our show, and I'm not like, you know, the whole time, like happy folk, whatever. I'm pissed. I'm also not like screaming, like the quiet scream that's like kind of like fake in my mind, like it's like a fake sound. I'm also not doing that. I really do like yell and scream in my real voice, which is why sometimes I lose it and sometimes I don't hit the note, and it's not consistent.
It's
every
raw
show.
though and emotive, and
It's
that's
raw.
the point of this.
Yeah. And so I'm really yelling. I'm really pissed. I also don't totally shy away from being like sarcastically sexual with our angry songs, loud songs, which kind of freaks people out because it's not like demure trying to be sexy. It's like sarcastic and like, oh, you think this is sexy? What about this? You know? And so I think a lot of the people that might consider challenging us or heckling us, they have probably never in their life experienced a woman that wouldn't give a shit about them in that way. And so I think a lot of people back down. And maybe I'm full of myself and I need to talk to my therapist about this. I don't know. But I really think that they come and they see us and they go, oh, they're serious. And never mind. You know, like we're not easy targets.
Yeah.
We're confidently pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid of anyone in the audience when I'm on stage. You know, I have the power of the PA, a loud band, a multi-gender band that will throw the fuck down if necessary. And all I want is for everyone to be having a good time. And how can you begrudge me that? You know, I don't know, kind of long-winded, but that's how I'm feeling right now.
No, there's a lot to unpack there. Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, even if somebody comes to the show and maybe doesn't understand or in the moment, like just doesn't agree or whatever it is, the exposure does so much for the message. So even if in that moment they're resisting it, they may go home at night and be like, huh, so remember what that band was talking about? Let's do a little Google search and maybe they'll learn something.
Here's hoping.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because I really should say most people are awesome.
That too.
Like, it's not like we have like droves and droves of people like doing this. Like, no, most people are awesome. They're just watching. They haven't seen something like that before, which is not to say, which says more about them than us, you know, like, but there's a lot of like when we played with Bad Religion Alkaline Trio a couple years ago, you know, we didn't know. I was like, maybe people are gonna throw tomatoes at us. Like, I really didn't know how those audiences would receive us.
Right.
And they were so fucking positive. They were so cool. And there were a lot of like older punks that were like, this is the punk I remember, right? That's like saying something that's like actually pissed. There's substance there and you have a reason to be pissed, right? Like, because we have people in the band that are actively discriminated against every day. So a lot of parents telling their kids like, yes, this is it, this is what you need to listen to, and like buying stuff to take home to their daughters that couldn't be there, like really, really awesome positive experiences, like 99% of the time. So yeah, thank you for
That's what we like to hear.
yeah, it's really great. It's really
They're
great.
not all creeps. There's a lot out there, but not everybody.
Yeah.
And that's also the other perspective in a sense. But we were kind of touching on earlier how right now, especially during the pandemic, there was this slight lack of creativity because a lot of us were just in that slump. It was really hard to get out of. And you've written songs about extremely serious topics over time, each with that important driving message that we've been talking about. But when it comes to your current songwriting situation and sessions, I know that you've officially written a love song for your dog. I really hope that yes, I was hoping that was real.
It's so real. It's so real. And I often will write songs about like multiple things and figure out a way to make it, you know, I'll justify it to make it like about one thing or make it cohesive and make sense. Because I'm only one person, I'm not a machine. So, you know, whatever, if it sounds good overall, great. And so I just had this lyric. I was kind of writing a love song to my partner and my dog at the same time. And I was like, well, I should combine them. That makes sense. And I was like, okay, I either need to decide how do I want the audience to hear it? Because if I'm talking about like fucking my partner, like it's going to be really weird if they think it's about my dog or like vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, oh, we should have made love and then I gave you your dog food. Like it's going to be like, what? So I definitely, and I'm paraphrasing, okay, but I definitely was like, okay, I need to clean this up in some way, not because it's dirty, but you know what I mean, I need to edit this in some way so that it's cohesive and isn't jarring, and it makes sense, but it's sounding more and more like a general love song, but there are all these little bits that are like, but that's about my dog actually.
So when I saw your tweet, it made me think of when Bert McCracken from The Used released All That I've Got, because that song in itself is also about his dog. And it's so rare that you hear a love song that really just has you for years and years, and then you find out that it's about a little fur baby. So had to bring that up, especially being that we know that she made an appearance, a little cameo earlier on. So I can't wait to hear that. That's great.
Me too. Now that I hope parts of this interview aren't used against me in the future. But I'm sure they will be. It's fine.
No, I'm sure everyone here knows what you're all about. We know it's not nothing like that. And I actually want to ask you too, like writing new music, you're getting in that headspace for what's next for War on Women. The world's an interesting place right now. You have a lot of inspiration, I imagine. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about like what pressing issues you're feeling really compelled to write about when it comes to this next War on Women album. Beyond your love of your dog and partner, which is a nice palate cleanser amongst the chaos.
Right. I think the first like beginnings of me starting to write again, I realized we're all very like personal songs about my feelings, and which, no judgment, that's all I did before War on Women, frankly. So but that was like the only thing I could bring myself to write about. And we've often had like one obvious like personal song on every record. We might have a few more on this one. But at some point I'm looking at what I had and I'm like, we can't make an album of just personal stuff with a name like War on Women. Like, that's the beauty of having this band name, is that it like gives us a focal point. It's our thesis that we're always trying to prove, right? And so I basically got all my bullshit out and then was like, okay, but what's going on in the world? What am I mad about? What's happening? And so the thing I have on my mind right now is that I'm still working on. So the song's not finished. So if anyone sees this, has any ideas, please message me. I need lyric ideas. But this idea of these like January 6th wannabe dudes like cosplaying as soldiers. Like, in my mind, I want to write a song. Like, I want to write a song about this image I have in my mind of like these dudes like with their big guns standing in front of some building defending it when no one asked them to, but like they're wearing camo in the city in front of a brick building. They have a bulletproof vest, but it's like too small. Like nothing about what they're doing is actually like tactical or makes any sense if you were actually in some sort of battle or war, right? So it's just a fucking costume to make yourself feel better. That's what I'm thinking about right now, that I'm trying to like make 3 verses for.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Like taking this idea that you have in visual and then like, okay, how do we rhyme and have a melody and go into a song?
I mean, look, RhymeZone.com is my favorite website when it's time to write an album. I am on RhymeZone all the time, like no shame whatsoever.
It's embarrassing how much I use that when I'm doing poetry or like writing lyricism. It's a lot.
I mean, yeah.
I actually need to type up R now and it all comes out.
And I'm also a big fan of thesaurus.com.
Oh yeah.
Throwing that one out there too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all same family, you know, like, yeah, but it's necessary. Otherwise we would never finish an album. So that's in my head right now. And then I also do a podcast called But Her Lyrics. And the first season, I just did, I took a deep dive on War on Women songs from our album Wonderful Hell, because it was the pandemic, we couldn't play shows. I wanted some way to promote the album. And so I interviewed band members about writing the songs and recording. And I also interviewed experts on the topics that I wrote about, so we could learn more and like, how do we do better and what should we do, whatever. So I've continued to do that podcast, and now I'm interviewing other lyricists about their lyrics and interviewing experts about that. And recently I did an episode on basically like climate change. And I realized in kind of writing my part of the script, like the intro, I was like, War on Women doesn't have a song about the environment. And it's kind of a big deal. like if the planet dies or kicks us off, basically is really what's going to happen. The planet's going to be like, I'm done with you. You're a scourge. Like, get out of here. Like, this is a big deal. How have I not written a song about that? So that's on my mind too. I don't know that I'll get my shit together in time, for the album, but I'm like, okay, like that's the thing. There's always a feminist angle to talk about any issue that you care about. So you're right in that I don't have a dearth of subject matter. It's just a matter of like me getting over this hump of non-creativity, you know, just feeling like depleted. I just have to get over that.
It does seem
No,
like you're on your
totally.
way though, in a sense, because between the dog/partner song along with these ideas that are spewing, it's just a matter of sitting there that everything clicks, and then next thing you know, you're writing for like a week straight and there's your record. So
Yeah.
all it ever takes. Fingers crossed. Let's put it out there.
Thanks for the positive vibes, you guys.
Woo!
That's what we're here for.
Truly. Well, I think now we'd just love to get into the reoccurring segment that we have every single week on She's with the Band, which is where we are going to ask you 4 questions about some jaw-dropping experiences that you have had throughout your career and your life. So, Tori, would you like to kick things off?
Oh, don't mind if I do. The first one we have here is, what is the most jaw-dropping experience you've ever had at a show? Could be one that you've played or one that you've attended in the audience. Doesn't matter. It's up to you.
I think it would be one time, well, a couple times now we've gotten to play with Frank Turner when he does kind of like a little mini festival in Boston.
Him.
And he's a nice guy. His now wife is like super cool, has always been really cool to us. Like it's actually really fun to just hang out with whoever he invites to play the shows. And it was, I think the first time we did it, you know, we met him, hello, blah, blah, blah. Oh, thanks for playing. Oh, thanks for having us. Da, da, da. And then he said, oh, are you cool with stage diving? Like crowd surfing? Are you cool with crowd surfing? And I was like, yeah, I'm comfortable crowd surfing. I'm wearing pants, you know, feeling good, like whatever. And he was like, okay, do you want to do something for me for the show? And I was like, sure. And he's like, okay, that's all I'm going to say. And so I told my friend before he went on, like, oh, it's so weird. Frank Turner asked me if I want to crowd surf during a set. And he was like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you a thing. Just be ready. And I was like, okay. And so he was like, all right, Shawna from War and Women. And he said, for this one song, he's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. This huge crowd. Hey guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take Shawna, crowd surfer, all the way to the bar. She's going to get a shot of tequila that she then has to bring over to this side of the crowd. And then you take her photo. So pose for a photo. And then Shawna, bring the shots of tequila to the stage and we're going to do a shot. Amazing. And it took the duration of the entire song. Like it was perfectly timed somehow, as if everyone had rehearsed it. They hadn't. And I'm like, I'm holding 2 shots of tequila, like little plastic cups, like whoa, crowd surfing. And then got on stage. Here you go, Frank. We do our shots. Woo, Shawna Potter, everybody. And I ran off stage, and that was like the most fun that I've ever had. Wow. And the pictures are fucking great. Like I absolutely love the photo. I was like, the whole time I was like, find your light, girl, find your light. Yes. It was so fucking fun. Wow. I loved it. And I love that like no one ruined the surprise for me. Like I was all about it.
That's so incredible.
It's like everything you love about live music. You have the songs going, you have the community, you got the friendship between you and Frank, you got some shots in there. Like what's not to love?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh man. Well, next up, let's see about this one. What would you say is the most jaw-dropping misstep early in your career, and what is the lesson that you took away from that?
Oh shit. You'll edit out my giant period of silence while I think.
Most likely.
We absolutely can.
Okay, yeah, that's probably.
We'll see how long the silence continues, and then.
Okay. I just don't want to feel pressure to say something stupid, like I did for the rest of the interview. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, stop.
Fuck you guys. I don't
Here,
know.
I'll take a sip of water while you think, so you don't feel any pressure.
Yeah,
like
look,
now we're off camera.
Let's go. Now I kind of leave that nice cute one, moment in. We'll leave it up to the editor.
A misstep.
It's out of our hands.
I mean, all I'm thinking about is how in the early years of War and Women, we basically couldn't say no to something, to tours, to shows. Like we knew how lucky we were to be asked, like that this could all go away any moment, and maybe it already has, you know, I don't know. And so we just kept saying yes to things, even though we were making no money and running ourselves ragged and like compromising our jobs, or you know, or like having to drive for 15 hours straight just to make a show that the other band was flying to, or you know, whatever. And that's not a misstep. I'm not actually answering your question, but it's like when I look back, especially after the pandemic, of like having a little bit of like time to reflect and get off the treadmill, I'm like, we could have said no to a couple things and nothing would have changed, you know, but you don't know that at the time.
That's the thing. Yeah.
That's
you never
the
know which
thing.
opportunity you do say no to, and then that's the one that changes your life. And that's a very, very much a mentality I know Tori and I have too. It's a double-edged
Yeah.
sword, because it's, you're a hustler and you love it,
Yeah.
but then at the same time, a lot of it's just not worth it other than for the experiences. So yeah, it's a fickle thing with that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like you want your career to be fueled by like excitement and passion and not fear, like fear of
Yes.
like, am I gonna miss this one big break? You want to, you know, enjoy the moments. So I could see how that would be something not necessarily regrettable, but it just kind of like hurts a little to look back on, maybe.
Yeah, like I missed a few friends' weddings, and you know, stuff like that, where you're like, would it have mattered? Would it have mattered? I don't know. But like when we started the band, like I was 30 already. And so, and I've been playing, you know, I'm playing guitar since I was 12 years old, but like we already, you know, I already knew like society hated us and thought we were like old timers, right? Like that, like everything is fickle and no one wants to see an old hag on stage. And so I already felt lucky to be having like opportunities. And I think we all, you know, agreed at the time that we all were like, we have to do this. We have to do it. And we were psyched about it. And it's like looking back, like, did we have to do it? You know? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a misstep. I don't know. It's not like I've ever like insulted Beyonce to her face or something. Like that would be a huge misstep.
No, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't call it a misstep, but it is a lesson that you learned, or something that you can reflect on and take away something from. So I think it does answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Well, here's one that's a little bit easier. Most jaw-dropping female artist that you would love to work with.
Beyonce.
Oh, well, that was easy. See?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also like but in reality, based more in reality, I think it would be more possible. Maybe like I'd love to, I'm just thinking of like guest vocals on a record, like because that seems like doable, and I feel like I would love to have Chelsea Wolfe on an album.
Oh, you are talking to like the queen fan lover of Chelsea Wolfe right here, okay? Straight up. She turned me on to Chelsea like heavy. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Love. Huge fan. That would be great. Also the woman from Oathbreaker. I feel like they've broken up by now, but
they're incredible.
But like I don't scream that way. And so if I write something, I'm going to need someone else to do it. And that would be amazing. But I've also always kind of felt like why can't Katy Perry take us on tour? You know, like why not?
I mean,
like,
she did Warped Tour. She's punk. Why not?
Like why wouldn't Paramore take us out? Even fucking Demi Lovato, who like has these like tougher kind of punk songs right now. I'm like, hello. Like I got like our stuff's heavy, but it's also catchy. Like our stuff is also catchy. So like we can do this. So I'll just put that out in the universe. Shirley Manson. But I wanna put gratitude out there that I feel like I've already gotten my jaw-dropping artist guest vocals with Kathleen Hanna on our album Capture the Flag. Like I fucking died when that worked out. So I'm good for the rest of my life.
She also had all the incredible praise on the book that you came out with, like literally from the Riot Girl herself. So when I saw that connection, so happy for you. That's mega.
Thank you. Yeah. It's yes, it's always good to practice gratitude and be like, you know what? There's been some cool shit.
Oh yeah.
Whatever happens next.
Alicia and I, through our entire career, have always had the mindset of the worst they can say is no, always try. So I say, just go for it. Who knows? Demi Lovato, Katy Perry, let's do it.
Yeah. If you're listening, Demi, let me know.
Well, now for our last question of the interview and for this segment, the most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood.
Oh, that I'm like mean or intense all the time. Like that who I am on stage is who I am 24/7. That's the only one I've really like heard. Our friend Derek from the Homeless Gospel Choir, he told me one time that he's had people ask him, is she really like that? Like for real? And he has to go, you mean like grabbing her crotch and screaming out about abortion all the time? No, she's not always doing that. Like she's a very lovely person. So yeah, I think it would be that. Like I there's something that we do sometimes, like in, you know, interviews or pictures or videos or on stage, like we kind of purposefully try to show that we are goofballs, idiots, you know, that we like fun, we're funny, because I think that that stupid misconception about feminists still exists, is that we're just killjoys all the time, you know, and it's just not true. And so even though we're a serious band and we're taking these issues seriously and it fucking matters what we're talking about, like it's also like our duty to show that like we're also cool and nice and normal, and that's what feminism is, and you shouldn't be afraid of it for that reason. Like everyone is welcome. Like let's have a good time and make everyone's like life a little better, you know?
I mean, essentially, like that's what feminism is. It's the opposite of being a killjoy. You want everyone to have joy. That's literally what you're fighting for. So so glad you debunked that.
Yeah, that's my philosophy. I feel like everyone deserves equal access to a good time, and so I will keep doing these trainings and, you know, putting out this book until everyone has that.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a great place to leave it. I think that is like a perfect final thought to leave us on. So Shawna, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope this has been equal parts informative and fun, and hopefully some new people are going to go listen to more on women now and jump on board, because there's more on the way from what I'm hearing, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. So DM us all your lyric ideas. Thank you in advance. We'll credit you in the album.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I really appreciate you having me. My friend Toomey that does a Not Fest podcast says hi. That's my buddy. So he says hi. And
Toomey.
And it's so cool to be chatting with you all today. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
thank you.
Likewise. Yeah, and everybody watching, if you're here, that means you're on NotFest, which means make sure you like and subscribe for more interviews from us here on She's with the Band. You can also subscribe on podcasts so you can get all the updates when new episodes roll out every Wednesday. So on behalf of my co-host, Alicia Atout, I've been Tori Kravitz, and we'll catch you next time here on She's with the Band.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.